Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most controversial topics in global politics, the Russia-Ukraine war. This war has divided opinions worldwide, but what if we try to see things from Russia's perspective? Before we begin, let me clarify this video is an analysis of Russia's stance, not an endorsement. Our goal is to provide you with a balanced understanding of their reasoning. Stick around as we break this complex issue into chapters for easy navigation. Chapter 1: Historical Context. To understand Russia's actions, we must first look back in history. Ukraine and Russia share deep historical, cultural, and religious ties that span centuries. Crimea, for instance, was part of Russia until 1954, when it was transferred to Ukraine during Soviet rule. In 2014, Crimea held a controversial referendum with 97% voting to join Russia. Though disputed internationally, Russia views this as reclaiming what was historically theirs. Furthermore, the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, home to many ethnic Russians, has been a flashpoint of tension, with Russia claiming it is protecting these populations from Ukrainian policies they describe as discriminatory. Chapter 2: NATO Expansion, a security concern. Russia's leadership has long been vocal about NATO's eastward expansion. After the Cold War, Russia claims it was assured NATO wouldn't expand into Eastern Europe, yet NATO has grown to include former Soviet states. For Moscow, Ukraine's intent to join NATO was the final straw. Why? Because Ukraine's proximity to Russia means NATO bases, potentially armed with weapons, could be at Russia's doorstep. Russia argues this isn't paranoia but a genuine security concern. Imagine a rival military alliance setting up bases near Washington, D.C. How would the US respond? Chapter 3: The Role of the West. Russia views Western nations, especially the United States, as meddling in Ukraine's internal politics. The 2014 Euromaidan protests that ousted Ukraine's pro-Russian president was seen in Moscow as a Western-backed coup. Russia often accuses the West of hypocrisy, pointing to interventions in Iraq, Libya, and Kosovo as examples of the US and NATO operating outside international law. They argue, why are our actions condemned when similar actions by the West are accepted? Is this a double standard? Chapter 4: Protecting Russian-speaking populations. Another key argument is the protection of Russian-speaking communities in Ukraine. After 2014, Ukraine introduced policies reducing the use of the Russian language in education and public life. Russia claims these policies marginalized ethnic Russians, particularly in Donetsk and Luhansk, and justifies its actions as defending these people's rights. Critics call this a pretext, but it remains a central narrative in Russia's stance. Chapter 5: Strategic Interests. Ukraine holds immense strategic importance for Russia. It serves as a buffer zone between Russia and NATO-aligned countries. Losing Ukraine to Western influence would not only diminish Russia's geopolitical influence but also weaken its defensive depth. Additionally, Ukraine's economic and energy ties to Russia, particularly as a transit hub for natural gas, make it a vital piece in Russia's strategy. Chapter 6: The Minsk Agreements. Russia often cites the Minsk Agreements as a missed opportunity for peace. These agreements, signed in 2014 and 2015, were meant to end the conflict in eastern Ukraine. Moscow claims that Ukraine failed to implement these agreements, particularly provisions granting autonomy to Donetsk and Luhansk. From Russia's perspective, this failure justified further action. Chapter 7: A Global Power Struggle. Russia also frames the conflict as part of a larger battle against US-led global dominance. They argue that their actions in Ukraine are not just about national security but also about resisting a unipolar world order dominated by the West. Through BRICS and partnerships with countries like China and India, Russia is pushing for a multipolar world where nations like itself can assert their sovereignty. Chapter 8: The Impact of Sanctions. Finally, Russia has positioned itself as a victim of economic warfare. Western sanctions have targeted its economy, particularly energy exports. But these actions have had ripple effects globally. From rising energy prices to food shortages, Russia argues that the sanctions are doing more harm to ordinary people worldwide than to its government. It claims to be a key supplier of resources unfairly isolated by political motives. And that wraps up our breakdown of Russia's perspective on the Ukraine conflict. Whether you agree or disagree, understanding all sides is crucial to forming a balanced opinion. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global issues. What are your thoughts on Russia's stance? Let's discuss in the comments below.